Hi, this is Guy Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition, and we are specifically going to talk about Legends of Vox Machina, and we're going to talk about Legends of Vox Machina's audience split, right? Specifically the part that is important to TTFRPGs, tabletop fantasy role-playing games, and specifically also for Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition. All right. So Matthew Mercer has really accomplished this massive accomplishment. He has given us the first Dungeons & Dragons animated television show since 1983. So the 1983 animated television show was the Dungeons & Dragons 1. So only two versions of Dungeons & Dragons have actually had animated television shows. The first one was 1983 to 1986. And it was the Dungeons & Dragons 1E television show. Right now, the word television doesn't even make any sense and is meaningless. And what we have now is Legends of Vox Machina is the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition streaming show. Right? You could say small screen. Small screen would be applicable too, but I think the best definition of it is the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition streaming show. Right? So basically, there are three categories of watchers for this. The first is the critters. We need to talk about the critters. So the critters made this possible. They made this a reality, right? And they didn't put up a small amount of money for it. They put up $11 million, right? So they're owed something, and they got it, right? What did they get? Well, they got all of Critical Role. I actually think you would have been fine. I actually think the best version of Legends of Vox Machina would have been moving forward with Travis Willingham, Laura Bailey, and then specifically, and then Ashley Johnson for Pike Trickfoot, and then so you have Pike Trickfoot, and then and Vex and Vax, right? And Vex. So Vex and Vax, Laura Bailey, right? Vax, Liam O'Brien, Grog Strongjaw, Travis Willingham, right? And Ashley Johnson with the gnome cleric Pike Trickfoot. I honestly think the show would have been vastly better, in my opinion. And I actually think it would have sold at Netflix if they had gotten rid of Sam Riegel, gotten rid of Taliesin Jaffe, and gotten rid of Marisha Ray. And because their characters, their player characters, are completely extraneous, add nothing. Also, you got 7 people, and not one of them knew enough to run a wizard, right? You're building a game for the ages, and you don't even cover the core 4. And the reason why I'm convinced of this, Mercer is so shafted, right? His player base didn't even know what the core 4 were. They didn't even know that, like, a true Dungeons & Dragons group, especially if you're building, a structure for a long-lasting, powerful story, that you need to cover rogue, cleric, fighter, wizard. His player base didn't even know that, right? Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is bad. And they're like, well, there's no, Taliesin Jaffe was like, well, there's no wizard. I'll run a gunslinger. It's Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. I don't care that I need to have Matthew Mercer do every single thing and build the whole thing up for me, and that it won't fit in any way. I'm just here for fun and to drag you down like an anchor, Mercer. But because I'm your friend, that's to be expected, right? And because you're a sacrificial, kind person, right, I could just put upon you, right? Like, I can't believe how much this player base fails. It's shocking, right? So the critters, in my opinion, so the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition community would have been served with a tight, really good Vex Vax, Pike, Grog. Done, right? Dump the bead songs and everything that comes with it. Every S word, F word, and I'm just waiting for the C word to show up, right? Like, dump it all, right? And the 5th edition viewers are much better served because they're going to be like, oh, well, Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is for 12 and up. what is this thing, right? Like, so basically, I think Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition viewer set would be far better served if this had been tight as a drum. But the reason it's not is the critters were owed, right? The critters don't want to see Talus and Jaffe go away. They don't want to see Marisha Ray, and they definitely do not want to see them, go away, right? So basically, we got this Amazon delivery because the critters, if any of it had changed, the critters would have been upset. Are the critters upset? I have watched several, probably 5 or 6 different reviews from critters, and critters seem thrilled. They seem thrilled with what's been delivered, and well, they should be. They got everything they wanted, which means that this is a show that is very detail focused, specifically for a set of people, right, that are specifically for a set of people who want a match of what they see in the small screen to match perfectly what they had in the tabletop role-playing game experience, right, that they watched on the web, right, specifically on Twitch and YouTube primarily, right? So you have those two groups. You have the 5th, and they want different things. The critters want the Mercer experience, right? And I would say diehard critters, right? They don't even care about Dungeons & Dragons. They just care about Mercer, and they would go with Mercer anywhere that he went, right? That's only about half the critter base, though, right? I do think about half the critters are like, oh, hey, I watched your story, and then I bought the Dungeons & Dragons books, and I'm learning about Dungeons & Dragons, and I care about Mercer, and I care about Dungeons & Dragons. But I would say easily half the critters, right, just care about Mercer and would go anywhere he went. Now, he ain't going nowhere because there's too much work. And he is not, I don't think he's willing to break up his world, right, to mix things up, right? And one of the things is, as I look at Mercer, I keep looking back on Gygax and how Gygax was so shockingly different, right? One of the things is Gygax was just a ornery producer, right? Like, he produced real things, real products. He made things happen, but he did it in the most, like, ornery, uncomfortable way for everybody, for him and for everyone around him. And, like, his relationships were broken everywhere, right? Like, personal relationships broken, friendship relationships broken, virtually every professional relationship he had was broken, but he got stuff done, right? Now, Mercer seems much kinder, much more balanced, right? But at the same time, he's accomplishing much, much less. In fact, he's carrying duffel bags of money that Gygax made for him, period. That's just a fact, right? So, and trust and believe, there ain't no other tabletop role-playing game that would have made that money for him. He knew that when he canceled Pathfinder 1, because it's a copy of Dungeons & Dragons. It ain't got the juice to do what's needed, right? So basically, you have all that going on. There's a third set of viewers. Let's talk about that third set of viewers real quick. The Muggles, right? What do I mean by this? People who ain't critters, people who ain't Dungeons & Dragons 5e, okay? Fans, right? And do not care about either, right? And there are millions of them. There are millions of Muggles who literally go over on Amazon Prime and are like, what's there to watch? Oh, hey, look, it's kind of an animated show. Let's see what this is, right? And they just hit play, right? And what's really fascinating is when they hit play, what do they come out the other end a fan of? Do they come out the other end a fan of Critical Role or a fan of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition? And it will vary based on their experiences. So one of the things is, I know this seems like a small thing. It's not. Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is on the shelves at Target. That's important. That's, like, really important. That, again, it's just Muggles. It's people who are not fans of Critical Role, not fans of tabletop role-playing games, not fans of Dungeons & Dragons, but they're like, when they see Vox Machina, they're like, oh, there's a bunch of dragons, a bunch of fantasy in there. This must connect to that Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition book. That Dungeons & Dragons, they don't know 5th edition, right? Like, because they're Muggles, right? Like, they're like, this must connect to that Dungeons & Dragons book I saw at Target. Why don't I pick that up? I'll actually just pick that up and do what I need. And do the needful. Yeah, so, so those are the three groups. the critters were owed, and they got what they were owed, right? But 5th edition is owed too, and we're going to see what we're going to get over the next few years, right? We're owed because Vox Machina Mighty 9 would not have moved an inch without D&D 5e. That's a fact. All that's my opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think will happen with those 3 groups specifically? Also, do you think I'm right that the critters are happy? They seem to be. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.